guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura Presnell, and I'm the founder of Balanced Bombshells, and I help women balance their hormones, whether you're trying to come off the pill, get rid of PMS, trying to get pregnant. Today's video, I'm going to be sharing my journey for getting pregnant with baby number one, especially coming from someone where it didn't happen right away. If I didn't understand some of the changes I needed to make within my body, getting pregnant would have been really hard. I feel like we hear a lot of stories of infertility, which this is not a story of. We hear a lot of stories of women who just decided to start trying and get pregnant right away. And a lot of us can feel super happy for those women, but also frustrated if that's not our journey either. So if my story can help you at all dive deeper into your health and kind of get under the hood of any additional changes or support you might need to be able to get pregnant, that is my whole goal for today. So to get pregnant with baby number one, my husband and I started trying after we got married in May 2019. And I remember thinking, my cycle is so spot on. I had a 28-day cycle. My period was always regular. I knew I was ovulating. I didn't have PMS symptoms. I didn't have period problems. I really had done a lot already to balance my hormones and get my body thriving. That's essentially that state I was in. And I remember thinking, it's going to happen quickly for us. My hormones are where they should be. They were not where they needed to be in terms of fertility. So in terms of an everyday wellness, my body was thriving. But in order to be able to get pregnant, I did need a boost. So what I noticed after 2 months of just kind of honoring my cycle and starting to read more about our cycle for fertility, I had done a lot of research up until that point in terms of how I could support my cycle overall for my everyday wellness. But what I was learning was if I was going to be having a baby, I actually needed to understand the markers a little bit differently than what I had for just like everyday wellness. So I read the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, it's more of a textbook for fertility. So I found it like very overwhelming, but I focused on the parts of that I did need and I found resonated with me instead of feeling like I needed to read this book from start to finish. I'll also link it if you would like it, but just be forewarned, there's a lot of information in there, and just kind of focus on the parts that you need versus necessarily feeling like you have to read it straight through. And what I learned in that book was counting the cycle phases for fertility. So with a 28-day cycle, I was ovulating on about day 18, which was actually too late for a 28-day cycle. So my luteal phase was only about 10 days. And so for everyday wellness, it's totally fine. But in terms of getting pregnant, it meant that my body was a little too low in progesterone. So from what I learned from the book was an optimal state for the luteal phase would be about 12 to 16 days. So I was like, okay, I need to move ovulation to more of a correct window, and I need to help my body produce more progesterone for the luteal phase to help increase my chances in terms of being able to get pregnant. So I did take 2 fertility herbs, one that would help support the ovulation and one that would help with the luteal phase. And that helped over the course of 3 months be able to get my cycle in alignment for getting pregnant. And so I remember like each month I would be like, okay, ovulation went to day 17 and then day 16. And then finally about day 14, 15, which then extended the luteal phase to be about 12 or 13 days. So it was even just fascinating to kind of mentally step back and observe the positive points that my body was showcasing and showing me like, okay, I do need additional support here. And that's what the fertility herbs brought for me. And I'm not going to say them here because I feel like there needs to be more conversation around them versus you watching this and just being like, oh, those herbs worked for her, I'm going to go take them. They do alter hormones. So I really would want more of an in-depth conversation, either one-on-one or in a fertility program that I can put together. I know it's easy to be like, yeah, okay, this worked for one person, I can go and do it. But if you don't need them, I don't want you taking them. Like, I just feel like it's also my responsibility of talking to you about your health on making sure that you have the information that you need and not taking things that your body doesn't need, especially since these fertility herbs do alter hormones. I found them very supportive for what I needed, but if I didn't need them, I shouldn't have been taking them, right? Like I actually talked to an acupuncturist before taking them because they specialize in herbs, and I felt like it was a good resource to be able to talk with, especially since I wanted to get pregnant naturally. So what happened was it took about 5 months from start to finish for my body to be in alignment for conceiving. And so from there, my husband and I got pregnant on the second try, which from start to finish then would have been about 7 months of trying. We were so excited. We found out we were pregnant on December 24th, 2019. I started having all the pregnancy symptoms. And if you've watched any of my other videos on this channel, you know that we actually lost that pregnancy just shy of 10 weeks in a miscarriage. So there's no way of knowing what happened. Was there something wrong with my body? Was it just a baby not developing? Now that I have a son, looking back at those first early ultrasounds, I can kind of see now that the baby just wasn't developing the way that it was supposed to. So I really try to honor the science and that our body is very smart and wise. And if my end goal was to have a happy and healthy baby and my body recognized this isn't a viable pregnancy, I do believe in Mother Nature taking course to be able to take care of it, which is essentially what happened. So my husband and I had gone in for an ultrasound just shy of 10 weeks, and the baby's heart had stopped, which was so devastating to hear, especially like when you just wanted to be pregnant, you were on the path, and then all of a sudden it was just like the rug was just pulled out from underneath you. So we opted out of doing a D&C, and there was like 3 options in terms of getting rid of a miscarriage. And one was like waiting it out, which I didn't want to do. The second one was taking some medication and passing it at home. And the third would be a D&C, which is the surgical procedure. I opted out of the D&C because I have had a history of low progesterone, and the midwife we were working with through our hospital system was like, because of human error, the doctor could scrape the lining too much. And she's like, I just essentially wouldn't recommend it for you. Or if you did do it, you'd have to wait longer to start trying again, which is also something we didn't want to do. So we felt safer doing the option to do it at home. So from there, I felt, of course, all the grief, kind of like diving into, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with my health? What's going on? So within a month or so, we actually got pregnant again with our son, Dylan. And I remember thinking, I feel like my progesterone's off. So what the miscarriage did do was help me dive deeper into getting some hormones tested to be able to make sure that my body was able to maintain a healthy pregnancy. So I ended up getting a full thyroid panel done, and I ended up getting my progesterone tested. So my progesterone was way too low for pregnancy, and one of my thyroid hormones was slightly off. So I certainly had enough pregnancy hormones to be able to get pregnant again. But in terms of maintaining the pregnancy, my naturopath that I work with recommended that I use progesterone supplementation through the first trimester, and then take a low dose thyroid medication every other day for the pregnancy. So in terms of like levels, she wanted my progesterone to be at about a level 20 or higher. And before we actually got pregnant the first time, I had my progesterone tested, and it was a level 24. So it was like perfect for where it was supposed to be. So the miscarriage, because my body was pregnant, I had produced a lot of these hormones, and then the pregnancy ended. It's kind of just like the same postpartum journey of after you have a baby, your hormone levels drop. So that's exactly what happened with this. And so some women, I think, who didn't struggle with progesterone issues in the past would have recovered much quicker, whereas my body needed basically medical intervention to be able to save a healthy pregnancy. So I started using progesterone oil on week 6 of my pregnancy with my son, and I continued through week 13, 14 of his pregnancy. And then I did take the low dose thyroid medication throughout the entire pregnancy. So the thyroid is really important for balancing our hormones. And I have a video that I'll also link for you about the hormones you want to balance when trying to conceive. And the thyroid helps your body tell your body in terms of like producing hormones, how much to make. So it's really important to make sure that your thyroid is optimized. So there was a part of me that like didn't want to take the medication, but I knew this is what my body needs. And I'm glad that I know that instead of going through another miscarriage, because we could have very well miscarried that pregnancy. So in terms of like timing, because I know we always want to know like how long is it going to take? It took 7 months to get pregnant the first time, and then it took in terms of like, it basically took about a year from when we started trying to when we got pregnant again with the second pregnancy, which is now our son Dylan, in terms of us having baby number one. So it literally was like full cycle. We found out we were pregnant with our son Dylan on our wedding anniversary, which is when we started trying to have a baby, because I was actually ovulating on our wedding night, which is hilarious. And I love cycle syncing because I feel like it naturally brings your body into the alignment and towards your goals. And it was like such a spiritual, feminine energy experience. So that was also really interesting and really cool that we found out about the pregnancy exactly 1 year later, even though in my mind, I remember feeling, I don't want to say like angry about it, because I wanted to be pregnant so much sooner. And I really had to check my mental thoughts on the timeline that I had placed on my shoulders and the expectation that I put on my body that it had to happen in such a way where life was then teaching me babies are on their own timeline. Sometimes things happen and you lose a pregnancy. I did feel grounded in understanding pregnancy loss and knowing that if we're going to show up to have children, the statistics are 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. So if most of us are going to try to have children and try to have additional children, the likelihood is really high that each of us will experience at least one pregnancy loss. So I felt, okay, that's the body's way of like survival of the fittest. So many other women go through this as well. So it made me feel less alone. And then I leaned on the Buddhism belief about pregnancy loss, where you don't lose your baby, you lose the physical form of the baby, but its spirit goes back to wait with its parents until another physical form is ready. So that made me feel like I didn't lose something. I just essentially changed the original timeline of when we were going to be having our child. So that's essentially in a nutshell how the process went in terms of trying to conceive and just some of the mishaps I had to deal with in order to be able to have our son Dylan. But that's, journey to baby number one. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know what a struggle it can be on the trying to conceive journey and just the confusion, the worry, the fear, especially if it's not happening right away. I do encourage you to dive deeper into your cycle, get to know the cycle math, get to know if there's anything going on with your thyroid or your progesterone or anything else with your body that you need to get into an alignment, because your body wants you to be as strong as possible to be able to have your children. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon.